celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's birth anniversary and inauguration of Center for Indian Studies that happened 12 years ago. I'm going to give you a very brief presentation about the center. And one of those ideas is many times, you know, UMass Dartmouth is a small campus of smallest campus in UMass, and also, of course, it's in the corner that many people sometimes don't know. So it's a good idea to give an introduction as to why Center for Indian Studies or connection between India and the United States stays here, and why it is that important. So I have a few points to make. This is the place where we really had Emerson and Thoreau, and those were the people who really first studied about India and Indian philosophy. Of course, you have Boston Brahmins that came after that, and I know there are sometimes controversies, but nevertheless, that's history. And then we have Swami Vivekananda was a major personality that came in 1893 who brought to this country the yoga, discussion of yoga philosophy. And he stayed in Harvard Divinity School actually for 3 months. He gave lectures when he was here. And then Boston Vedanta Society, which talks about the philosophy that he and others had been advocating. And Paramahansa Yogananda came, who wrote the autobiography of Yogi, also a very prominent person and had an impact in this country. He came in 1920, and actually he came first to this Plymouth area, right in his book. And Swami Prabhupada came in 1965, came actually first to New York, but stayed in Boston area quite a bit. And many people may not be knowing that's the founder of Hare Krishna. And of course, Gene Shaw came here in UMass Dartmouth in 1973, and he had already worked on his PhD on Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent methods, and he continued his scholarship here until 1986. And of course, a bunch of scientists, engineers, doctors like us who sort of in 80s, and now we have a population of about 3.1 million of Indians in this country. It's interesting there are not as many in Massachusetts, about 100,000. But nevertheless, they are very powerful, and so Center for Indian Studies has to come to UMass. Now, the question is why UMass Dartmouth? So there is a, of course, we are always talking about freedom and independence, particularly when we are honoring Professor Gene Shaw. So one thing, and I know Dayalan makes this point that really the tea was not from India, it was from Sri Lanka. But the tea that Boston Tea Party was from India, or Indians assigned just to accommodate him. But more important thing is that the ship that was carrying that was named Dartmouth, and it was built in Dartmouth. So now you know why Center for Indian Studies is in UMass Dartmouth. The center was inaugurated in 2001, during the same month, and you can see on October 6th in 2001. And we have moved along quite a bit. This was the ambassador, the Consul General was here, Dr. David Frawley, of course, Chancellor G. McCormick, our former Chancellor, was there. And we have a very strong international governing board of governors from Singapore, India, Dallas, California, all kinds of places. And last year, actually, we had a youth camp here, and on 4th of July, there was a parade celebrating American independence. So Center is quite involved, has moved along. And then we have been celebrating the inauguration of the center. One of the reasons I put this slide is because most people don't know that I had slide here. I did. And then, of course, Mahatma Gandhi, because the Mahatma Gandhi really represents, when faculty from this campus decided to apply for a center, the idea was to bring in indigenous perspective. And Mahatma Gandhi was always a very big advocate of indigenous movement. Wherever it's indigenous doesn't have to be one particular place. Wherever you are, you have your local solutions, you have local problems, you have local solutions. So that is related to sustainability or political or economic or whatever that is. And so I think this is one of the unique thing that center advocates. We have had some courses taught in that conferences. And finally, I personally believe very strongly that we must be a change agent. This is a very famous quote. And Mahatma Gandhi was really a very big advocate of it. Of course, I also like from Albert Einstein's that example isn't another way to teach, it is the only way to teach. And this is a very important lesson. Of course, as a scientist, we see it all the time that we have to do whatever we are teaching. But I think this is true for the society as well. And of course, then Gene Sharp, he is really the person, talking about faculty. I was thinking only scientists do whatever they teach, but actually political scientists do what they teach also, and that he is really an example of that. Of course, I like that picture. Some of you might be able to see that Mahatma Gandhi has been his major inspiration, but I like this picture better. Of course, this is at Albert Einstein Institute, so many people get confused because they think it's probably something to do with physics. But actually, maybe it has something to do with physics. But the reason I like this is because his desk matches with mine. And that's the only connection I have. Now, that was a brief introduction I wanted to give about the center and its history. And I would like to now invite our chancellor, who is new, fresh, energetic, and I'm so grateful that she had to cancel a plane. Her plane was at 1 o'clock, but she had to reschedule at 4 o'clock and to be here. So I'm so grateful that, and then I think I mentioned that in Gene Sharp and Mahatma Gandhi were also inspiration for Filipino's movement, something that works more closely. And so it's really a great honor, and we are very grateful that you were able to come. Chancellor Ross.
Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Dr. Balram Singh and Jerry Solvine, for getting this organized. I think you will know very shortly why I chose to speak about Dr. Gene Sharp in my last Monday morning message, which I don't know how many of you read that, but I was very inspired when I read about Dr. Sharp's work last year, actually. I think it was in February last year in the New York Times. There was an article about him. And what I did not know was that there was a connection between him and UMass Dartmouth. So I'm thrilled to be here to welcome each and every one of you to this forum organized by the Center for Indic Studies to honor the work of a UMass Dartmouth Professor Emeritus, Dr. Gene Sharp. An Oxford-educated sociologist, Dr. Sharp was also the chairman of the sociology department at UMass Dartmouth when it was Southeastern Massachusetts University, or SMU. Okay, so that was the precursor institution to UMass Dartmouth. He was inspired by the work of Mahatma Gandhi, who employed, as we know, nonviolent civil disobedience in leading India to independence. So Dr. Sharp authored the 3-volume Waging Nonviolent Struggle, that was published in 2005. And likewise, he wrote the 88-page From Dictatorship to Democracy, a Conceptual Framework for Liberation, a book that has been translated to 30 languages and has been widely read by dissidents around the world. How profoundly inspiring it is. How profoundly inspiring it is to reflect on the legacy of one person. One man who, through his scholarship, has toppled or is toppling dictator regimes in Myanmar. And we know Aung San Suu Kyi was just in Washington, D.C. last week. In fact, I heard about that firsthand because my daughter works for Amnesty International. So she quickly sent me a picture of her with Aung San Suu Kyi. So we saw what happened in Myanmar, in Zimbabwe, in Bosnia, in the Ukraine, in Tunisia, and in Egypt, to name a few. And some of these are still going on as we speak. How humbling it is to realize that Dr. Sharp lived and taught at UMass Dartmouth and has taught our students what he has transmitted to freedom-loving people across the globe. Today's forum reflects our collective pride and joy and our admiration for the work of Dr. Sharp, for his devotion to strategic nonviolence, in sowing the seeds of democracy and freedom. Dr. Sharp has proven through the years that, as Edward Bulwer Lytton said in one of the lines from a play, that the pen is mightier than the sword. So I think Dr. Sharp has demonstrated more than amply that the pen is quite a mighty instrument. So to the faculty, staff, and students that are here today, I bring you my warm greetings and hope that all of us, each and every one of us, work tirelessly as Dr. Sharp has in pursuing the causes of freedom and democracy in the world. Every day when I read the newspaper, just 2 days ago I was reading about Malala Yousafzai, you know, the 14-year-old girl from Pakistan who was shot because of her advocacy for education for girls. And she is one among many around the world who are advocating for peace, for education, for health. I think it is so humbling and so inspiring to know that we had among us, and we will have on Skype, a professor emeritus from UMass Dartmouth, whose work continues to influence and inspire freedom-loving people in the world. So enjoy the panel and the presentations. And Jerry, thank you for your persistence and perseverance in spite of the little confusion with the schedule. But although I cannot be with you for the rest of the forum, my thoughts will be with you because I do care about this work. As Dr. Balram Singh mentioned, I have lived in a dictatorship, and I have seen what in the Philippines was called people power, what people power can do. And so we know the impact of this kind of nonviolent resistance. And we know that this is very much needed by peoples across the world. So it's wonderful that we're celebrating it today, and especially for our students who are here. I think they would find it incredibly inspiring. So enjoy the forum, and have a good afternoon.
We'll get on with the program. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kevin Thoreau, who is Assistant Dean of Arts and Sciences. He's also himself a political scientist. The Dean, Mr. Riley, is away from another event, and she has sent the Assistant Dean, Kevin Thoreau. Kevin Thoreau will take care of the program.
Welcome, everyone. I'm very pleased to be representing College of Arts and Sciences today at this event. We're always proud and happy to support the Center for Indian Studies and all its work, spreading the understanding of Indian culture and society, and bringing it here so that we have a better understanding of the important international partner of the United States. Of course, all the Americans. I also, am very happy. I remember last February also reading in the New York Times about Professor Sharp, and I remember being very pleased to find that there was a linkage between him and someone who I was already somewhat familiar with from my own studies, that there was a linkage between him and UMass Dartmouth. And I remember emailing all my friends saying, hey, did you guys know that Gene Sharp was here? So that was a very pleasant surprise, and I'm happy that we're all here together today to honor Professor Sharp and his work, and really the dramatic impact that he and his work have had, not just on the world around him, but on the entire world. It's very impressive. I'm glad that we're doing this today. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists who are going to interact with Professor Sharp in a little while. We have with us today, if you could just sort of wave your hand or stand up, Tom Payne, who is a graduate of our Master's of Public Policy program and currently a law student here, is also also Keith Wilder, who is the Assistant Dean of Students and Director of the But before we get to that, I'd like to invite Professor Jerry Sultan up here to present a retrospective on Professor Gene Sharp's work.
This is an exciting moment, an exciting time in the history of UMass Dartmouth. It's an exciting time for the Center for Indian Studies. So we're here for the Gandhi Distinguished Speaker Series lecture for 2012, and this year we're devoting it, this special lecture to a tribute to Gene Sharp, as you know, UMass Dartmouth Emeritus Political Science Professor, over the past couple of weeks actually, we've had signs up around campus and we've been sending out material which had this question on it, because it is a question. I discovered Gene Sharp. I had no idea who this man was until about a month ago. And I stumbled into him while trying to find a replacement for our Gandhi Distinguished Lecturer for today, who had backed out because of technical difficulties with planes and travels, and so told us that he could not make it as we had planned he would. So in looking for a replacement on short notice, I stumbled across Diana X. She's a Harvard professor and does a Gandhi seminar every year. And she's a friend of the Center for Indian Studies and will no doubt be here at future events as well. But she wrote an article in the Harvard Crimson Review about her most recent seminar, which was last year, about a year ago. And she mentioned that she was so pleased because she invited a special scholar, Gene Sharp, an expert on political science throughout the world and about Arab Spring and about nonviolence, to come in, and he was able to do so. And so I said, Gene Sharp. So this is the question that we asked. So I came back to campus and asked a number of people, have you ever heard of Gene Sharp? Because he's a UMass Dartmouth professor of political science who retired in 1986 in the SMU days. So I asked around, and nobody seemed to know of him, and a few people remembered his name, but really didn't know much about him. And were not aware of what I was discovering by doing a search on the internet. And that was, this guy is off the charts in terms of international fame. He had become famous before his work with nonviolence. So immediately I said, this is wrong, and I approached Paul Rahm and others and said, well, we need to do something about this. So that's what lent itself to this event. And the theme is, who is Gene Sharp? Because people don't know who he is. So this is a two-part event, and we started last night with the film, How to Start a Revolution, which is all about Gene Sharp's life and work. And that began the process of opening up the question of who is Gene Sharp. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so on the first part from the film last night started to fill in the question marks about who is Gene Sharp. So there are these factual things, as you see on the screen, the resume items. And so I just want to flash these quickly, but we're not going to focus on those. He has an outstanding resume. Next slide, please. He's a prolific author. He's written 11 books. He's published 11 books, and he's written many more in various forms. Co-authored, as manuscripts, as monographs, and the literature that he produces in in his Albert Einstein Institution in Boston is astounding throughout his life. Okay, next slide, please. His first book, interestingly enough, came out of an experience that he had. Now, one of the slides, one of the posters that I put up on campus, some of you may have seen it, read something like, we celebrate Thoreau, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Gene Sharp. Okay? Now that's the lineage, and that should tell you a great deal about the context of Gene Sharp's work. It's involved with nonviolence. But when you see that poster, one of the things that the astute scholar will notice is that all four of those prestigious gentlemen spent time in jail for their convictions. Gene Sharp's time in jail was not memorable for him. He spent 9 months and 10 days in prison protesting the government's right to conscript him into the Korean War because he was a nonviolent pacifist. In any case, when he got there, he wrote to Einstein. He somehow got his address. He had never met him. And he wrote to Einstein, and Einstein wrote back and said, well, I hope that if I were in that position, I would have done the same thing as you. In any case, Einstein at that point agreed to read a manuscript about 3 cases of Gandhi's use of nonviolent strategies that Gene Sharp in before 1960 had written. And Einstein said, yes, I'll read that. So he sent them the manuscript, and Einstein agreed to write the frontispiece, the foreword for this book, which was published in 1960 by the Indian publisher that Mahatma Gandhi had also used for his own publications. In any case, next slide, please. He wrote many books, and I'll just give you a couple of titles here of interest. His dissertation was on, you can read that, the politics of nonviolent action. And when he published it a few years after into a book, it was immediately rose to the top as a classic in his field. Next slide. Now, I'm not going to do any more of the background because we have more interesting things to talk about Gene Sharp. But what I will do, please note this website. On this website, we've made a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is called Who is Gene Sharp, that walks you through at your own pace, gives you a lot of the information about Gene Sharp. We recommend that you go on our website and have a look at that PowerPoint. Okay, next slide, please. Here are a few of his books. Next slide. And next slide. In Gandhi's lifetime, now, what I wanted to do was I wanted to capture some of Gene Sharp's effects on his colleagues around the world who are also political scientists, who are also familiar with the work of Gandhi, who are Gandhi scholars. So we have a good crop right here. Over the years, our Gandhi lecture, this lecture, has been populated by a number of Gandhi scholars, including, I think 2 years ago, Uma Mestri, who is the great-granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, and she's a professor of history at the University of Western Cape, South Africa. She was delighted to hear that Professor Sharp is going to be honored this way. And so she immediately wrote me back and said she would like this read to you. In Gandhi's lifetime, he managed to gather around him a number of disciples whose crucial work saw the implementation of his ideas. In the aftermath of his death, too, there have been many who have been inspired by his philosophy of nonviolent resistance and deployed his tactics to change the conditions of the lives of people who are subject to conditions of great injustice, often legitimated by states which did not have the interests of the people in their midst. In reading the biographical details of Gene Sharp, she's never met him. In reading the biographical details of Gene Sharp, I am struck by his own actions of nonviolent resistance, which saw him imprisoned, and his many academic writings spanning over 6 decades about how nonviolence can work. I am particularly struck by his analysis of the state and how it controls its population and how people can turn things around. He offers practical examples of actions that people can take, a manual for nonviolent resistance. And people have read and listened. He has had a wide impact, which one will see in the documentary which we screened last night. Gandhi did not have much time for professional, meaning she didn't think much of professionals, meaning academics, whom he saw as self-seeking. Professor Sharp demonstrates that this does not need to be so. I wish very much that I was there to participate in the events to honor this man of active peace who inspires people to be proactive to secure change for the better. Okay, well, I have a bunch of those statements from various scholars around the world who I emailed over the past month or two, I'm not going to read them now. I just want to read you a couple of samples. But I want to get to the more important question, and that is, what makes Gene Sharp special? That is, there are lots of political scientists. There are lots of Gandhi scholars around the world. There are lots of people in the professions, in academia, who are supportive and promote nonviolent actions. Why does Gene Sharp rise to the surface? Why is Gene Sharp twice nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? Why was Gene Sharp awarded the Swedish alternative Nobel Prize just 2 weeks ago, called the Right Livelihood Award? Why has he been honored over and over in the past few years? Why is there a film made about Gene Sharp? What makes him rise to the surface? And that's what I want to get at. In order to do that, next slide please, I want to begin to mention that there are 4 areas that I want to focus on. There are certain personal qualities that make people rise to the surface. Now, Gene Sharp has a set of personal qualities that I want to just indicate to you from Chancellor Professor Toby Huff, who knew Gene and worked with him back in the SMU days and into the UMass Dartmouth days. Now, Toby Huff would be here today, gladly be here today, if he were not in Göttingen, Germany, on a research project. He is retired from the university, like Gene, but he's still active. And he's in Germany, and he expressed a great sorrow at not being able to be here in person today. So I then circled a few things that he said that will make some points that I think are really important to make about Gene Sharp. First, I have been a friend of Gene's since he hired me at UMass Dartmouth in the 1970s, and so we have many happy memories. But if anyone wants to know what it means to dedicate one's life to the service of an idea, and one of the greatest importance, then one should look to Gene Sharp. Now, what he's saying here is a very, very important quality, a personal quality of Gene Sharp. At a young age, Gene Sharp committed himself to the notion that he wanted to make the world a better place. He wanted the world to be better off as a result of his having lived here and worked here. And he stayed with that commitment. He felt that one of the biggest problems in the world was that we have tremendous amounts of violence. We live in a violent world. Over and over and over and again, we are killing each other in large numbers and small numbers, over small things, over big things. It's natural that we have conflict, but it's unnatural for us to kill one another so easily. So he was looking for an alternative. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And you have to skip next.
Your writing covers a range of topics,
Could you
but
pause?
has a consistent theme.
Thank you. Okay. So what I've done to introduce you to Gene Sharp is to let you hear his own words as we develop this idea of who is Gene Sharp. So this is a video that I pulled out, or it was pulled out by our library archivist from 1986 when Gene retired. He did an interview. So I've just pulled just a moment of this so you can get a look at Gene back in 1986, just as he was retiring. So go ahead.
Your writing covers a range of topics, but it has a consistent theme. What is that?
Well, it has a couple of related themes. One of which is the examination of alternative forms of struggle, which would be used in severe conflicts in place of violence and war. The other theme, which is compatible with that, is the search for means by which people can control their own political destinies, even in face of market dictatorships.
You use terms like nonviolent sanctions, civilian defense, transarmament. Could you define those and introduce those? Define those terms and introduce us to this concept.
Well, nonviolent sanctions or nonviolent struggle is a technique which encompasses many different ways of fighting with psychological, economic, social, and political weapons rather than military ones. So that symbolic ones of protest, social boycotts, economic boycotts, labor strikes, political non-cooperation, and many kinds of defiance, including mutiny, sit-ins, parallel government would be included in that kind of activity. Civilian-based defense is an application of that technique to the problems of national defense, whether internal attack records are or foreign invasions and occupations. Let's see, what was the third? Transarmament is the planned process of changeover. And if a society decided to gradually build up a civilian-based defense capacity, it would have to do so while the military is still in place. And it should gradually build up the new defense capacity to the degree it seems to be adequate. You can phase down the military and finally out. And that process is called transarmament because it's not disarmament. It's not the abandonment of the fighting capacity, the defense capacity, but the shifting over to a new one.
Okay, good. Yeah, just keep it there for the moment. Okay, I just wanted to give you a little flavor of what he looked and sounded like, and a few of his very simple definitional ideas. Now we're going to move on and move up and see him in the next one, as he is today. Now, can you get the sound up?
And that's my first book, which you folks have never seen, which I did when I was in Brooklyn, New York. And it was later published by now it's even in Ahmedabad, the Gandhi Publishing House. That book made me realize how carefully Gandhi planned the number of servants that he had. Planned according to understood strategy of how to conduct a circle against the person without using violence, but how to be effective.
Okay, I have a few more of these, but we're not going to show them. We're going to move right on here. About 2 weeks ago, I went to Boston and brought my gear and did taping of Gene Sharp. He's 84 years old. He's very active. He had unfortunately had an injury about 3 weeks ago. So it's very difficult for him to even sit for long periods of time. So that's the main reason that he's not here today. He will be coming in on Skype. But I just wanted to give you, I was hoping to have time, but I don't think we do, to show you a few more on specific topics. The idea here is that in addition to personal characteristics, we now move to social characteristics. There are certain social characteristics that makes a person rise above, as Gene Sharp has risen. Now, part of that is a lineage. Now, Gene Sharp is very much in the line of Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and other non-violent promoters, activists. Now, he differs from them in one very important way. He does not have a cause. Are you hearing me? Think about that. He is a scholar. His interest is in the world at large. So his activism, his sign carrying, his banging his fists happens in the library. And that's what makes, and this is one important feature, not the only thing, this is one important feature that makes Gene Sharp very, very special. He has extended and made nonviolent activism into something even more than it has been in the past. There's a clip here, well, I'll just wait till we get there. Okay. So what I'd like you to see next is a comment from...
I first became aware of Gene Sharp's work when I was an undergraduate in the 1970s. I was part of this leftist student subculture that was very involved in solidarity struggles for oppressed people in the third world, resisting US-backed right-wing dictatorships. And though as passionate as I was about the cause, I was pretty uncomfortable with many of my comrades and their romantic notions about armed struggle. These white middle-class kids, these born-again student Marxists, would never know the horrors of what a counterinsurgency war would mean. At the same time, I was concerned that fellow students who identified as pacifists were somewhat...
So I think we'll have to move on, and I'll have to state it beforehand. This is Stephen Zunes. He is a professor of political science. He's a Middle Eastern scholar, Middle Eastern policy at San Francisco University, or University of San Francisco, I should say. And he was delighted to produce this little tape for us just a few weeks ago, specifically for this event. And the message here is very important, and I thought he really captures something about Gene Sharp. Gene Sharp represents a pragmatic approach to nonviolent intervention. That is, Gene Sharp is not on the street. He doesn't have cause. He doesn't have himself the leadership to bring about a demonstration, and he doesn't get involved with that at all. Instead, he offers and has, with his scholarly work, discovered, he's really discovered that nonviolent intervention can be a weapon that's not only an alternative to guns and violence, but he has discovered that it is a greater tool. As the Chancellor said, the pen is mightier than the sword. Gene Sharp has shown in political science that that is literally true. All right, so I hope you're starting to get a little feeling about why he's risen above, okay? So, and what is his niche here? But we're not through, because the next step of this is Gene Sharp, as an academic, is an outstanding scholar. And as a scholar, he's respected by his scholarly colleagues for his work, as Stephen Zunes and virtually anyone else will tell you who's in the field. But what makes him different here is this other aspect of providing the tools, and he does this consciously. In his scholarly work, he provides the tools, that is, the bridge to those who are on the street, the tools for actually carrying out most effectively the non-violent strategy. And that's new, and that's something that puts him into a class by himself. So next slide, please.
In 2004, Thomas Weber wrote in the journal Peace and Change, quote, "There appear to be two approaches to nonviolence. They have been termed principled, where emphasis is on human harmony and a moral rejection of violence and coercion, and pragmatic, where conflict is seen as normal and the rejection of violence as an effective way of challenging power. Failure to distinguish between these two strands," he wrote, "can lead to a diminution in the effectiveness of nonviolent action and can cause confusion among the audience. The acknowledged leading figures representing these approaches are Mahatma Gandhi and Gene Sharp. Sharp was once an idealistic seeker after Gandhi, yet his later work is characterized by hard-bitten realism. He now champions a technique approach to nonviolent action, arguing that it should be used for pragmatic rather than religious or ethical reasons. Depending on how one looks at it, Sharp either has gone beyond Gandhi, making nonviolence a more practically available method of struggle, or has ditched the elements of Gandhi's philosophy in action in a way that diminishes nonviolence. Perhaps rather than debating the merits of each approach, they can be seen as indicating alternative paths to the traveler who does not want to use violence." That's a quote from Professor Weber.
Okay, so what we find here is that we have personal quality, we have professional qualities as an excellent scholar and researcher, we have an idealistic vision and commitment. And this is what will strike you when we speak to Professor Sharp at the age of 85, who you saw on the screen just a moment ago, and who will come in on Skype in just a moment. And what will strike you is that his entire life, from a very young age, has been one-pointedly focused on this issue of developing nonviolent strategies to make this a better world than when he first came into it. And he's found that the best way to do that, in his opinion, is with this pragmatic approach, looking at violence as an effective tool. In that way, you don't have to have any belief in anything. You don't have to be a privileged member of some subgroup. You don't have to belong to a particular church or organization. If you simply want to join with your fellow human beings to get a common purpose done, you should look at nonviolent strategies as one of the most effective ways of going about what you want. Okay? So next slide, please. So here are the areas that we're looking at that I've outlined just briefly. And that's all I have to say for the moment. And I hope you will go on our website, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of this event and give some thought to the wonderful work of these judges. The film that we showed last night now belongs to UMass Dartmouth. We have it in our library. So you, and I hope professors and students and anyone at the university can come and take it out at any time and play it for your group, for your class. And I hope that you make use of that film. Really an excellent film called How to Start a Revolution. And it's worthwhile viewing however you get hold of it. Finally, the Center for Indian Studies has other programs, and I hope you will look at the website that I showed the address for a little while ago. It's www.umassd.edu/INDIC/ and that will get you to our website. And we have a number of things on there about upcoming programs and events. And if this event, this program interested you, I hope you'll find interest in our other programs as well. So, I will now turn this back to Kevin.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Lee, I'm the Assistant Chancellor at Gandhi University. I also sit on the Board of Governors for the Center for Indian Studies. So as a representative of the Board of Governors, it gives me great pleasure to announce the Spirit of Gandhi Award. The Spirit of Gandhi Award is in honor of extraordinary service to humanity in the traditions established by Mahatma Gandhi of nonviolence, truth, justice, and peace. Mahatma Gandhi said, "My religion is based on truth and nonviolence. Truth is my God. Nonviolence is the means of realizing Him." This year, this award goes to Gene Sharp of the Albert Einstein Institution, whose scholarly work on the politics of nonviolence has extended Gandhi's dream of a nonviolent world. His writings have established nonviolence and people power as effective tools in brokering political change. His life has provided an example, along with Gandhi, that one person can truly make a difference. His tireless devotion to the practical implementation of nonviolent alternatives has changed the world for the better. And as a former UMass Dartmouth professor, it gives us great pleasure to know that he is continuing his good work out in the community and the world, and to know that his presence really has a deep, deep effect across the globe. So with that, we're pleased to announce that the Spirit of Gandhi Award goes to Gene Sharp. Thank you.
Hi, Professor Sharp. This is Lisa Nauer, also a professor at UMass Dartmouth. And so one of the things that I think some of us who teach here find, and this isn't true across the board with our students, but that there's a sense of the difficulty of actually producing any change. That a lot of times I find students think that something can't, they don't see what one person can do or what they and a group of people can do. They don't really have any sense of how to get started. So talking about nonviolent resistance seems in some ways kind of abstract. Some of the faculty here, I think some of us who come from activist backgrounds, like myself, we sort of say jokingly in class sometimes, why don't you go take over the campus? Why don't, if you're upset about something here, why don't you try to do something instead of just complaining to me about this policy or this, attitude? And there's a kind of disconnect, and they sort of laugh and think that we're silly idealists, that we actually think that you could do something and produce a change. And I'm just wondering, how do you get people to take sort of that first step towards thinking that change is actually possible and thinking that something that they could do could have some impact?
First of all, have to understand what people have done in other situations, some of which might be very different from yours, and some might be similar. If they can learn that some people in a similar situation have done a certain type of action and persisted in it, despite the problems that they may have encountered, and they actually accomplish something, then they say, aha, we can do that much. Even though it's not a very big issue, even though it's a small issue, we can do that because they did that. Now we can experiment. First of all, it has to spread the ideas. There are small booklets introducing ideas that they don't have to read 900 pages the first week. It's an account of what is nonviolent struggle, not passive resistance, not holiness, not being true to your beliefs, but how to actively be taken to change things. There's a book called There Are Realistic Alternatives. It's on our website, the Albert Einstein Institution. Look at it, right there. Not reading too much, but stuff to get you interested. See if there's something that you want to pay attention to. And then it gets more complicated. From there you can go on to the guide street planning called self-liberation. And on from there, you get into a more advanced level. Like, you do not learn how to fight the Second World War in 2 easy lessons on Tuesdays. You learn how, if there's war, how military struggle works, what makes it complete, what makes it fail. Similarly, nonviolent struggle, I would argue, is probably more complicated than military struggle. It requires a great deal of bravery and a great deal of persistence, a great deal of good strategic thinking, and knowing what's going to take your beliefs and put them into action and make them exact. Then you have a chance to be willing to persist in that because you're accomplishing something. But you're related to the original problem, the original issue that you chose to confront the performance of.
I want to follow up because this takes us back to a point that we were discussing last night in the conversation about the film, which was something that Dr. Singh mentioned, which is suffering and sacrifice. So you're talking about the complications or the difficulties, the challenges of nonviolent struggle, as you were saying, is extremely demanding, perhaps more demanding than military struggle. So that means in developing this strategy and having a kind of long-term perspective that in order to make change, we have to make sacrifice of some sort and possibly suffer. And in our somewhat counter-culture here in the United States, at least as we are seen by some people from the outside and some of our own self-critique, that I think is also perhaps might be a challenging argument to make, that in order to do that, you not only have to take some action, but you might have to give something up.
That may be accurate. But I think nonviolent struggle has often been misrepresented, maybe by its own advocates. There's an assumption that certain types of believers in nonviolence as a moral principle, and that suffering is by itself good. And I think that's not true. There's a claim that you just voiced from someone else's thinking, I presume, that non-natural requires greater sacrifice, greater suffering than this war and violence. And to be honest, I think that's nonsense. If you look at this little bit we have on statistics of the casualties in non-natural and compare them to the casualties in military service, I think you will find that the casualties in non-violent service are smaller, weaker, lesser than are the struggles in military struggle and the guerrilla struggle. So that you don't have to be super great more than the soldier on the front line did, because they have risked a hell of a lot, in the results we all know. Non-violent struggle, sometimes people think you have to go to the military struggle in order to protect these people from being beaten up and killed as casualties in a non-violent struggle. And I think that is not the case. The assumption that was used in one or two recent is that because of all the casualties, the extreme suffering, the immense bravery shown by people in Syria, for example, do we have to go in and protect them? Protect them by military means? It's not protection. That's bringing on them the greater casualties of military struggle, which are absolutely ridiculous. You have to rethink on that by knowing what the hell we're talking about, or what's the value of the situation. If you appreciate it.
Yes, Dr. Sharp, I got a question. What are some of the parallels in your work that are most applicable for us today? In light of all of the revolutions across the world today, what do you think U.S. policy can do differently?
Before we get to the question about U.S. policy, I'm not a specialist on U.S. policy. They haven't really consulted me very much, as you can imagine. But first of all, you have to understand what non-violent struggle is. And to my knowledge, there are no great expertise on non-violent struggle among U.S. policymakers. So they can't make a good decision about what to do to help out with particular non-violent struggle in some part of the world. And not knowing what to do, they should stay the hell out, because they might be messing up their other objectives, other interests, and other ideas about what is power and how to move power. So, getting good thinking based upon reality is a very good start.
Professor Sharp, this is Kevin Perot, I'm the Assistant Dean of Arts and Sciences. I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Here, since I've been on the campus, I was there an awful lot for a very long time. So it's good to be back in some place.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor Singh, you want to make some closing remarks?
I would like to thank Dr. Jerry Sullivan for making this effort single-handedly, and of course appreciate all our co-sponsors. The Children's Center for Basic Studies has been really very blessed on this campus. And I know we are a small campus, and I know we have only a small number of activities, but the collaboration that we are able to do with different departments and centers is really very, very helpful. And I, of course, appreciate you all coming here, and we look forward to another year when we come next year, another lecture series. Of course, we have some events coming up next month and the next semester as well. Thank you all.